this. What does it take to move from hosting intentional community conversation to transforming communities? So what's going to happen is we'll be hearing the stories that are held in your circles, and we'll be learning together from those stories about this. So you may have noticed we've already been tossing around quite a few words that and we just wanted to give you some context for what we're saying, what we mean when we're using words like intentional community conversations. So what we mean by that is purposefully gathering people together for a conversation that enables us to make progress on issues we care about. So that's what we're talking about today. And in terms of transforming, how we thought about that is it's to change fundamentally in condition, in nature, or character. It's a leap beyond linear improvement, a metamorphosis. In other words, a transformation in a community means that there's been a shift and it doesn't go back to the way it was. So, when Sam talked about the purpose of the Social Innovation Lab, this is sort of the vision that those of us on the team have been holding, which is that all Minnesotans thrive in a socially just, ecologically sound, and ecologically sound and economically sustainable ecosystem of social innovation. So I think of an ecosystem kind of like a swamp, or maybe a forest. It's a community of diverse organisms, creatures, and their environment that are all functioning as one whole. So those of us on the team really have come to think about you all as kind of like a swamp. Kind of like a forest. You're very welcome. And when you're in the middle of a swamp or in the middle of a forest, it's hard to really see the whole. But that's what we're trying to do here today. And we can't do it alone. So we really need all of us to be able to even glimpse the ecosystem of social innovation in the region. And that's what we're up to. So, let's see. I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. How did we land on this question about what does it take to move from hosting intentional community conversations to transforming communities? So, as Sam mentioned, we started this about a year ago in this very room, and we began by asking people to prioritize. Why did you come? According to these three sort of circles that are represented. If you came to advance projects, we asked people to go stand over there. If you came to, because your priority was about learning about social innovation, we asked people to stand over there. And if we came because you wanted to connect with other change makers and focus on relationships, to stand over there. Well, if this room was a teeter-totter, it kind of would have gone like this. Because there were so many people standing in the corner about relationships and connections that they would have weighed down the whole side of the building. So, those of us on the team started saying, well, what do we do with all this energy around relationships? How could we use that to advance good work? So that's why in September, we landed on the theme of network weaving. And how do you weave intentionally networks for change? So something came up in that conversation. We heard a phrase, which was, we need to get off the front porch. And what that meant was social innovation requires us to be working with and connecting with people who are not the usual people we hang out with on our front porch. And that is vulnerable for everybody. So if you're working on reducing homelessness and you've got nobody at the core of your work who's experienced homelessness and really understands it, that's going to limit what your possibilities are. And if you're somebody who's experiencing homelessness and really wants to get to the root of some of this, you're going to need to collaborate with people who are not the people you're necessarily usually hanging out with. And that is vulnerable. So where we landed was that in December, we listed a layout on vulnerability as a resource for social innovation. And we defined that as risk, uncertainty, transparency, and embracing diverse perspectives. So I'm actually telling you right now the story of how we got here. Because in that conversation, what we heard was, we in this room have the luxury of having these rich conversations. But is all this talk making any difference? And those of us on the lab really took that question to heart. And we knew that it was coming out of a burning urgency that we know many of you in this room feel right now. So we responded in 3 ways. One was we began hosting what we're calling focus labs, which are targeted labs and that are about specific focus areas or geographic areas, like the North Minneapolis Sustainable Food Lab. So that was one sort of response we had. Another one was, this is a slide of the Ripple Effects Map, which is the online survey that we're creating with the help of lots of you, to be able to literally map who's hosting conversations in the region. What are they hosting them about? What are the results you're seeing? So, and I just want to talk a little bit about what we're learning so far. One of the things that we're learning is it is really hard to make the links between the energy of conversation and the changes we're seeing in the community. So I just want to demonstrate this. I was thinking about this morning, how I could help explain this. So if you just take one arm and just shake it a lot, like really vigorously, okay? And then just take a moment and close your eyes and just feel that arm. That's energy. This is like what it's been like for the people who are hosting intentional community conversations, generating lots and lots of energy. People are excited about what's happening. Okay. Take your other arm. These are the results and the changes that are getting sparked in community. And if you just do that with your other arm, okay? These are all the changes, the results, the ripple effects that we're seeing, okay? Now please do both at once. This is what it has been like. As we've been meeting with storytellers, this is how hard it has been to make the link between the experience and the energy of these conversations and the changes we're seeing in the community. But that's what we're charged with doing here today. That's what we're hoping to do. And that's what we need your help to do. So, before we go into that, I just want to show you a little bit more about what we're learning from the Ripple Effects Map. Oh, I just want to say, so these dots all represent different conversations, the size, the number of people, the color, the kinds of formats, the topics that are being used. And if you want to know more about this, you can, during break, Christine Capro will be up here and she can do more stuff around the map. So one of the first things we learned is that anecdotally, informally, we knew a lot of people were hosting conversation as a way of making change. There's a lot of this work going on around a real diverse range of topics. And the most people seem to be, right now, who are responding, are hosting conversations that in some way relate to sustainability. That's the largest, what we're seeing, the largest bubble so far. So in terms of lots of different methods that people are using to host conversation, and the one that they're using the most is World Cafe. So for those of you, again, it's part of what the energy we've been seeing is people get excited about what the topics are and the ways that we're convening. So, the third way that the team has responded, the first was the focus labs, the second was the ripple effects map. The third way is by inviting you here today to really look at this question, investigate this question. What enables intentional community conversations to make a transformative difference? So that's what we're doing here. And, you know, our team isn't going to really, we don't have any answers to this. It's not like we're going to be delivering some formula. We are together going to co-create a better understanding. And the way that we're going to approach that is by hearing from the stories and just trying to pull out from the stories an understanding of what sets the conditions for intentional community conversations to make a real difference. Let's see. Just want to say that there's a lot of people in this room who've been doing work like this for a very long time and who've been doing a quite beautiful job of it. And we're going to be hearing stories from some of those people. And there's as many rich stories that we are not going to hear. And so we want to thank you all for contributing your wisdom and your experience. And for those of you who are new to thinking about conversation as a way of making change, your curiosity and the passion for what you want to make change around. So just want to say that. And just want to acknowledge that through this introduction, we've been drawing on the work of our colleagues, the definitions around transformation, and nod to our colleagues at Heartland. All of this is building on the work that we've all been doing. So I just want to acknowledge that none of this is being generated out of thin air. It's out of the work that you've all been doing, so thank you. Okay, so Dylan in a little bit is going to walk us through the process we'll be using today. But before we go there, I wanted to bring this theme of conversation for transformation a little bit closer to home. So what I'd like you to do is just take a moment just to kind of bring yourself present and think for a minute of a minute of silence, just to think of a story from your life about a positive change that has been influenced by a conversation in your workplace, in your community, in your family, your neighborhood, your school, your faith community, your friend network. Just take a minute to think about a story from your life that you'd be willing to share with one other person in this room. Anybody needs more time, just raise your hand. All right. So, in a minute, I'm gonna have you turn to someone next to you, and you're gonna just do a little bit of a speak and listen, where one person for a minute and a half or so is gonna just tell the story. The other person's role is really, really important, which is to be present and just to give witness to the story. And so the reason we wanted to invite you to attend to how you're listening is because the way that we listen and show up for our stories together today will influence what it is that we can do together. So what that means is, as you're listening, just showing up, first of all, letting them know that you're really there, with an open mind, willingness to learn something, an open heart, a willingness to empathize, and perhaps an open will, a willingness to be even changed by what we hear. What does it take to show up in that way and to give witness to the story? So throughout the day, just an invitation that the way we listen is as important as the way anyone is speaking and what is said. So with that, I'm just going to invite you to just non-verbally just sort of identify, connect with somebody just without talking, and just that they're the person you're going to share a story with.